I don't think it doesn't start and it doesn't end with one drop of one bomb. And indeed, military experts would tell you it takes more than one of this massive ordnance penetrator, the MOP GBU 57. It would take more than one to disable Fordo.
Whatever President Trump wants to come out of the Middle East conflict, he doesn't want America to get sucked into a long, costly foreign war. But then a week or so ago, he didn't want to get drawn into this conflict at all. And it is looking increasingly possible that he and America will. So what now? What next? Well, President Trump is clear. It's an open question.
You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death, you could have done fine. You would have had a country.
Well, Iran says it won't be backing down and will retaliate should America get involved. An hour ago, we heard from Israel's president, who said Israel's action against Iran was defending the free world. Isaac Herzog told me they wanted to end Tehran's nuclear program.
So we are not warmongers. We were willing to get to an exit strategy that enables the region to go back to peaceful existence without an Iranian nuclear threat looming above all our heads. It's obvious. When you have an ideology that says eradicate the state of Israel, and in addition to that, building nuclear capability, you realize that the risk is enormous, and we cannot lead it as such.
It's Israel's president speaking to me just before the show. Now, let me welcome to the programme and to the studio Ambassador Barbara Leaf, who's a former Assistant Secretary of State for the Middle East back until January, and a former US Ambassador to the United Arab Emirates. Ambassador, welcome.
Thank you, John.
What do you think, Ambassador? President Trump says that what he wants to see now, what he demands, is unconditional surrender. What do you think that means?
Very unclear. But I think what is clear is he is working methodically to heighten the uncertainty for Tehran most of all. I would just add there are 500 million people in the Middle East who would like to know the answer to that as well.
Yes, and it certainly seems to be the case that there are, sharply differing perspectives on this inside President Trump's inner circle too.
Yes, it would appear so, and some of that is spilling out into public view. And look, I mean, the issue of going to war is a heavy one, and it's one where the public will have a strong sense of a vote. If not a vote, certainly a strong opinion.
Yeah, I want to come to that in a moment as well. That we have seen more than once in the past. It is so much easier to get into a war than out of a war. Shall we presume that if America does engage directly in this conflict, then the USA, President Trump, will have a clear exit strategy?
Well, I don't know that he hasn't made a decision. First of all, that's clear. So it stands to reason there's no exit strategy. And look, I would just say,
but do you assume there has to be one at the point that America goes in?
Should be, yes, absolutely. Because I don't think it doesn't start and it doesn't end with one drop of one bomb. And indeed, military experts would tell you it takes more than one of this massive ordnance penetrator, the MOP GBU 57. It would take more than one to disable Fordo.
So, Ambassador, at what point do you believe it would be correct for Israel to call mission accomplished?
Well, I think that depends on what the ultimate war aims are, and those remain unclear, at least to this listener.
In your view?
So I think we're getting to that point in the sense that Israel has massively attrited the senior leadership of the military leadership, the IRGC leadership, disabled and confused the regime, taken out big chunks of the nuclear infrastructure. The question that everyone is posing is this also supposed to include regime change? And it's just not clear at this point, although Prime Minister has hinted as such.
It is clear, isn't it? And fair to say that, well, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, he has been the one who's been forcing the pace here. He is absolutely directing the play. Which is not what we're used to seeing in the case of President Trump.
No, that's right. Or indeed most U.S. presidents, especially when there are equities such as this involved. And so for the moment, the U.S. is, of course, assisting in Israel's defense in myriad ways. But in terms of the action, Netanyahu is the pace setter.
Yeah. Look, none of us are clairvoyants. We can't read the future. Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, and
nor do I.
Nor do you. But from your knowledge of the region, and you know it well, do you believe that regime change in Iran is possible?
It's possible at the hands of the Iranian people, although a very, very difficult prospect given the architecture of the security state that has been built up over 40 years, 40 plus years. I personally, as a longtime diplomat and witness to many failed regime change efforts by foreign powers, including my own government, I'm not a big fan of it. You can change a regime, but creating a new one is something altogether different.
You step into the unknown. I mean,
exactly.
Lots of commentary about a descendant of the Shah who is still around making public comments.
That's
maybe
right.
The thoughts of a relatively more moderate cleric maybe filling the void. But there literally is no. You could go in any direction.
That's absolutely true. And we have not been in Iran on the ground in 40 plus years. So we have less of a feel, a sort of a touch point feel than we might have had 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But even so, regime change is something that opens up many possibilities, many of which can be quite terrible.
It's been the case in past years that the United States, through its various organs, would seek to influence an outcome like that, would seek to be on the ground through covertly or openly and influence the outcome. That's just not an option here.
It's not an option, but also, I mean, we had a pretty terrible experience in Iraq, thinking we knew a lot about where we wanted to go at the end of it all. But that's not, foreigners have a vote in these things. The people of the country have a vote. And in the case of Iraq, there was a long period of chaos and violence that ensued.
Yeah, escalation in this conflict, Ambassador, that could come with a very serious economic cost, couldn't it? In so many different ways. What are your thoughts on that?
So look, if just taken as a standalone power with an arsenal of proxies and ballistic missiles, if you'd asked me that question 5-10 years ago, I'd have said, well, hold on, tighten your seatbelts because it could be terrible. It could be terrible for, first and foremost, the Gulf countries that are ranged right across the drink, as it were. Also for U.S. forces and U.S. diplomats. The Israelis have really taken apart a lot of the normal pieces of military and extended offensive capability that the Iranians had. The proxy network is in disarray. Yeah. So you hear almost nothing from Hezbollah or for the Iraqi groups or whatever. So a lot of those tools are gone or at least severely diminished. That said, an open-ended kind of war of attrition between the two countries would be a terrible thing for everybody's economic benefit, or not benefit, but economic interest, and not just economic.
Right, so the leaders of Iran are using very belligerent language, which is their what it's sort of what they do, and the idea then of retaliation, aiming missiles, for example, at American bases in the region, or disrupting trade along the Straits of Hormuz, which would have a very serious impact on trade and oil prices and that sort of thing. Do you think that the will is lacking, whatever they may say publicly, on Iran's part, or the means?
I think the means first and foremost. As you said, disrupting traffic in the Gulf, closing off the Strait of Hormuz would have been the go-to play 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And indeed, we saw that in the summer of 2019 when President Trump ratcheted up pressure through the maximum pressure campaign. The Iranians literally struck back with limpet mines on ships, taking crews hostage, and threatening a lot, and then landing a kinetic blow on Saudi Aramco. I don't think those are available tools, or they might do so only in utter desperation or frustration, but I think it's less likely. The threat making against U.S. forces, I have to think the regime knows very well they don't have the means to open up a second front.
And an attack on American military bases would bring, a storm down on the country, and they will be, whatever else they know,
and they're trying to handle the Israelis as it is.
So how much faith do you have, Ambassador, lastly, and how much faith should we all have on the quality of advice and advisors now available to President Trump? not all of them, on the face of it, over-impress, put it that way.
So he's got a collection of people that he is being guided by, including the uniformed military. The task of military commanders giving their best military advice to the president is not only to say, how can we do it, depending on the mission that he's asked for, but also give him more options and also tell him very frankly, here are the risks, here are the benefits, but especially the risks, because he has to be able to make such a fateful decision with as much clarity about the unintended or possible consequences of any course of action. And with something like this, well, I'll just say, again, I don't think it all ends with a set of bombs in Fordo, and that's the thing that he will have to weigh on his mind. That will be on his mind.
But at the senior political level, when you've got the National Security Advisor Tulsi Gabbard, you've got the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and you've got others. These are people, some of them, who do not get rave reviews for the quality of their political judgment.
Well, he has advisors inside and outside. Part of what I have to think he's listening to right now are advisors about American public reaction. He has to take that into account as well.
We all look at this. We don't know what's going to happen next, and the president is keeping us guessing, either because he doesn't yet know himself, or he just wants to play the game of keeping us guessing, or maybe some combination of all of that.
Maximize leverage.
Maximize leverage. How confident do you feel at this moment about the future?
Long silence ensues.
I'll invite you just to add a little to your silence.
No, look, I'm very uneasy because, as I said, I've seen things go terribly awry. Easy to get into a conflict, always very difficult to get out. And you've got to have an understanding of what you're trying to aim for and what your ultimate vision is for. So I do hope that this massive amount of leverage that has been accrued over the last couple of days, he will put to use with the Iranians at the table. And I think they're giving off signs that they want to get to the table. So let's see.
All right, Ambassador Barbara, a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.